so I got revenge 3 years later. When I turned 18, my parents told me, "You're an adult now. Time to move out." No warning, no savings, just 1 month to figure it out. I was devastated, but had no choice. I found a tiny apartment, worked 2 jobs, and barely scraped by. Fast forward 3 years. I'm 21, doing well in my career, and even saved up enough to buy my own place. Then, out of nowhere, my parents called. They had lost their house due to bad financial decisions and wanted to move in with me. I couldn't believe it. The same people who forced me out without support were now begging for mine. So I told them, "Sorry, I'm saving my space for people who supported me when I needed it most." The shock in their voice? Priceless. Was it harsh? Maybe. But I think they learned what being on your own really means. Parents kicked me out at 18, so I got revenge 3 years later. After I told my parents they couldn't move in with me, I thought they'd leave me alone. But nope, they showed up at my house unannounced. The first thing my dad said was, "You're really going to let your parents live on the street after everything we've done for you?" My mom chimed in, "We raised you, fed you, gave you a roof over your head for 18 years. You owe us." I stayed calm and said, "You didn't raise me to owe you. You kicked me out with no warning. Everything I have now, I earned on my own." But they didn't stop. My dad started pacing and said, "You think you're better than us now, huh? Living in this big house? Don't forget where you came from." Then they dropped a bombshell. They told me they'd spoken to my extended family and said I was refusing to help them out of spite. Now I'm getting texts from relatives saying things like, "You're selfish," and even, "If you don't take them in, you're a terrible daughter." It's so frustrating because none of them were there when I was struggling to survive on my own. Now my parents are threatening to ruin my reputation in the family if I don't let them stay. I'm torn. Do I stand my ground or cave to keep the peace? Let me out, so I got revenge 3 years later, but 3. After my parents got the entire family involved, things started to escalate quickly. At first, it was just guilt-tripping texts from relatives saying stuff like, "They're your parents, you wouldn't have anything without them." But then, my parents took it a step further. One night, I got home from work and noticed something weird. My mailbox was stuffed with random junk. Inside, I found a letter. It wasn't handwritten. It was from a lawyer. My parents were threatening to sue me for emotional damages because I refused to support them. Seriously? I called them immediately, and my dad answered like he was waiting for my call. He said, "You didn't think we'd let this go, did you? Family sticks together, and if you won't do what's right, we'll make you." I told him straight up, "You kicked me out with nothing at 18. I don't owe you anything, and you're not getting a dime from me." He laughed and said, "We'll see about that in court." But here's the kicker. They don't even have a case. I talked to a lawyer myself, and they said my parents were bluffing. But now they're harassing me even more, calling non-stop, sending me texts like, "We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of son you are." At this point, I'm done trying to reason with them. If they keep pushing, I might have to file a restraining order. What would you do in my situation? Because I feel like they're going to take this to the next level. My parents kicked me out at 18, so I got revenge 3 years later. Part 4. After I told my parents I wouldn't let them move in, things got even worse. They weren't bluffing about escalating, because a week later, I got served with actual court papers. They filed a claim saying I had a moral obligation to take care of them because they raised me. Their reasoning? "We provided for you for 18 years. Now it's your turn to pay us back." I couldn't believe it. Who does that to their own kid? Thankfully, my lawyer was on it and said their case didn't have a leg to stand on. But the stress of the situation was unbearable. Every day I'd get texts from them like, "You're ruining this family," or "You'll regret turning your back on us." Then my uncle called me out of nowhere. He said my parents had been telling everyone I stole money from them to buy my house. Of course, it wasn't true, but it was enough to turn some family members completely against me. To make things worse, my mom started posting on social media about how I'd abandoned them in their time of need. She even tagged me in one post saying, "A real son would never treat his parents this way." Now I'm stuck. On one hand, I know I'm in the right, but on the other, My parents are dragging my name through the mud. My lawyer thinks I should countersue for defamation, but that feels like going nuclear. What would you do? Should I fight back legally, or just cut them off completely and move on? Let me know, because this battle is far from over. My parents kicked me out at 18, so I got revenge 3 years later, part 5. Last one. The court day finally arrived, and my parents showed up looking confident, like they were about to win. They doubled down on their lies, claiming they had loaned me money for my house and that I was refusing to pay them back. But when the judge asked for proof, their story fell apart. They stuttered, saying it was a verbal agreement, but my lawyer came prepared. He pulled out bank statements showing I'd paid for everything on my own, no help from them. Then he brought up their social media posts and texts, proving they'd been trying to smear me out of spite. The courtroom got quiet, and my dad's face went red with anger. My mom tried to interrupt, saying, "We're his parents! He's twisting the story to make us look bad!" But the judge wasn't buying it. Then the judge said something I'll never forget. Parents have a responsibility to their children. Your actions have been harmful, not supportive. This case is dismissed, and I'm ruling in favor of your son for defamation. Hearing that felt like a weight lifted off my chest. They have to pay me damages now, a lot of money. But it wasn't even about the money. It was about finally standing up for myself. As we left the courtroom, my dad muttered under his breath, "You'll regret this." But I turned to him and said, "No. The only thing I regret is giving you so many chances. For the first time, I feel free from their control. Do you think they'll actually pay up, or will they try another stunt? Either way, I'm ready for whatever comes next."